And so this was the sort of the main interest from industry and the commission. Davis had broad interest that we want to get engaged in the sustainability area. We have broad interest in this, so the vice chancellor at the time was very interested in investing. And our dean was very interested in the teaching of innovation and research. And so my appointment was actually in the design department, because I was an architect in a previous lifetime, so that was part of that equation. So we basically do three things here. We do research and development, always with industry partners. We're always working with people. We're very engaged in demonstrations and sort of walking the talk, and I'm going to show you some of those things. And then we're very involved with sort of outreach, training, codes and standards, and again, very engaged with the industry. We created the California Lighting Controls Training Program. So if you're a contractor in the state of California, you take a version of one of my classes that I couldn't teach now, but I could maybe 10 years ago. And that's all been spun off to nonprofit entity and to the community colleges that are all doing that. And I'm going to show you some of this. This specific initiative is something that came up. It's been quite a hot issue over a number of years. And we've been pushing very hard at the Energy Commission to get into this. And the Energy Commission, basically, like us, they wear their hat on energy efficiency and energy savings. And they said, well, this is really not related to energy. But we were persistent. And we finally got through on this. And I was just going to show you some of the background on this. Not good? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to first talk a little bit, just a little bit intro. We've been working for quite some time with the med school, the nursing school, and the biology folks on this, what we're calling the Davis circadian protocol. And it has to do with introducing light into spaces which mimics the kind of natural spectral distribution and intensity that we evolved under. Because kind of lighting we have inside offices and spaces is not very close to what we evolved with, and certainly not at home either. And so we really explored this at the early Honda House. And the Honda House was the first circadian full house in the country, where basically what we did inside the home was this. And this is something we've evolved under. And when we don't see this as a species, we're in trouble, okay, biologically, medically, all kinds of issues. We really want to see this kind of variation throughout the day. And when I went to school and learned about lighting, it was basically about visual pathways. And this is the idea that lighting allows you to see, read, navigate spaces. I never really got into the biology. And it wasn't until I got to Berkeley when I started really working with my advisor that there's a whole other level of how light affects us, not relative to vision, but how it affects our hormones and basically our balance and our wellness. So we spent quite a bit of time on this, and again with the med school and the biology folks. And if you look at sort of our natural kind of cycles on melatonin, in the morning it depreciates, it's very low throughout the day, and then it builds up at night, and it goes through this kind of cycle. And so this is very well understood by the biologists. But what was interesting for someone like me, who spent a lot of years studying daylighting and lighting and doing lighting measurements, is this is just inversely correlated to the diurnal swings in light. And so it really tells you that we're very, very much wired into how lighting conditions affect us biologically. And the reason why we have so many mess-ups in what happens with our melatonin is because of bad lighting conditions. And you all know about melatonin, sleep, but it's also a foundation hormone. It touches every other organ in the body. And so a lot of our health issues can be directly related to disruptions in melatonin. And so today, we're going through this kind of revolution of sort of how we're lighting buildings. We've gone from incandescent to fluorescent to now solid state technology, which is basically it's an electronic light source. And so our homes, our places of play and work are predominantly lit with solid state lighting technologies. And LED technology is just it's basically two semiconductor materials together. When you run a current through it, you start emitting photons. And it's an electronic light source. And then it emits through a phosphor, and it creates color. And the basis of this is what's called the blue pump. And a blue pump means that LED basically produces a lot of blue light. And then depending upon what kind of cover you put on it will affect whether it's white. This is an LED up here, and it's basically inside it's blue, but it's got a white cover on side, and it makes white light. So it's basically very similar in concept to a fluorescent light source. It's just instead of making UV light, it's making blue, and that makes the white look white. So the problem with this is that if I look at this is just a color spectrum, a signature. So every light source has a signature. So if I look at the signature of an LED, it's got this blue pump, which I just showed you, and then it's got a broader visible, which is the white light portion, which is this. Turns out that the blue pump corresponds almost exactly to our circadian sensitivity. So the blue part of the LED can be quite disruptive in terms of suppressing melatonin. And it's just the nature of this light source. And it was broadly misunderstood, initially when this all started. So it turns out that radiation in the 470, 480 region is the most effective at suppressing melatonin. So if you're around blue pump LEDs at 10 o'clock at night, you're suppressing melatonin. I'm going to show you more on this. Now, suppressing melatonin is okay in the morning, but not at night. And so, and just to show you an example of this, this is just light level. Okay, this is sort of amount of light. So this is a very little amount of light. This is about the light level we have in here. Okay, this is a little bit brighter. This is office level out here. But what I'm showing on this axis is how much melatonin gets suppressed. And these are all different people. Everybody's a little bit different. But they did a large study where they took people and they exposed them to different light levels. And what we're showing here is that melatonin is broadly suppressed at light levels less than 100 lux. And this is about 10 lux inside this room. So to put that in a practical sense, the lighting you have in your living room is most likely not good for you. And you think about the implications on that. I mean, you think of all the rest homes, people's homes, hotels, etc. Those light levels are all in excess of 100 lux. So, and also intuitively it makes sense because you think as a species, we never saw 100 lux past 7 o'clock, ever. So all of a sudden, the last 150 or whatever years, we're seeing this. Whereas as a species, we never saw it before, ever. And so it's bound to have very disruptive impact. So the lighting we have at home and in hospitals, every place at night, not good for us, okay? Suppressing melatonin. So a number of years ago, the AMA came out, and this was very controversial because the American Medical Association, very powerful, very conservative, okay? And they don't come out with these things easily. They basically said light at night is not good for you. And the study that I just showed you really showed that it's not good for you. And so there was this caused a huge change in how we're thinking about how we put light into spaces. And Davis was really in advance of this. And again, we have the chair of the biology department, the associate dean of the nursing school, and the med school. We're all working together on this. You probably all recognize this. This is the Honda house, and we did this quite some years ago. And this was what, it was 10 years ago almost, right? And so Mr. Honda wanted to do a house or wanted to first solar electric cars. We're very famous with electric cars, and they said, well, let's build kind of a fake house where we can show charging. And the next question was, well, why don't we build an energy efficient house and we'll have it connected with the electric. And then they came over here and they said, will you do the lighting? And I said, for sure, you know. And I said, I have one condition. I want it to be circadian lighting. And I want it to be the first circadian lighting in the country. And they said, what's circadian lighting? And so I said, oh boy, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this project, you know. So this was actually, well, I call it the Honda Circadian House, but it did other things, yes. Ben gets a little bent on this one. It's not the Circadian House, but anyway. This really got us thinking about this, but it was the first in the country. And basically what we did was this. We had a lot of money, and what we were able to do was change the lights minute by minute to follow what the appropriate color temperature and intensity should be. So we essentially did this throughout the day. And we got to experiment. Now, as it turns out, you probably don't need to do this because lighting throughout the day is usually high color temperature, very, very white. And it's only in the mornings and the evenings that you need to worry about this. But we had a lot of money, and we were learning, and we did this. Okay? And so this is kind of a view inside it when this was all working. So at nighttime, we had sort of low sunset kind of color temperatures. And throughout the day, we had lots of daylight, lots of white, lots of bright light, so it would suppress the melatonin, which is what you want to do. We also did something else on this, and this was actually from my work at Berkeley. And this was, I was working with my advisor, and he was looking at pupil response, and this was pre-melanopsin. This was before melanopsin was discovered. And we were using amber lighting arrays for what's called rhodopsin bleaching. So you know when you get up in the middle of the night to take a whiz and you turn the lights on in the bathroom, you turn them off, you can't see? That's because you bleached the rhodopsin in your eyes. It's night blindness. And so if you use light that's away from blue and more into the red amber, it maintains your night vision. You've seen those submarine movies when they're driving around in the red, okay? And so, the first bathrooms we built were all red, but I learned a very expensive lesson because we had a whole series of full-scale bathrooms for the new hospitals. And we did it all in red. The whole crew came in, and the red looked terrible. It looked like, ooh, very ghoulish, Halloween. And they said, what's wrong with this professor? So it turns out that amber is just a little notch over. And it's also on what's called the black body curve. The black body curve for the physicists in the room is something that occurs in nature. So I've learned that natural lighting can be characterized by how close you are to what's called the black body curve. So amber turned out to be, everybody loved it. Okay? And we did a whole array like this. So the two benefits here are the night vision, but also you're not suppressing melatonin. So when you get up in the middle of the night to take a whiz, you're not getting blinded. Hospital people were really interested in this. So we did a whole array on this. It's beautiful. Kitchens. This is assisted living, what we're doing. This is at work I'm doing in Asia. And it turns out that hospitals are really interested in this because of trips and falls. You use the word trips and falls, you have their immediate attention. And this doesn't look bizarro. I mean, it's nice, it's comforting, you know. So, back to biologically appropriate light. So, this is a beautiful, beautiful picture. You know, my hometown. But understand, and I showed this up at the commission, and they're going, whoa, beautiful. And I said, every single thing that you see here is complete waste. There's nothing here that's doing anything, okay? And so I actually, there was a bill on this that was introduced to the legislature, and I got to do testimony to the legislator folks. And I said, I'm estimating, and I've got good numbers on this, at least 50% of the power that we generate at night for this is completely, it's just completely wasted. And you can go through this. You should not see any light. This should be just dark, okay? Because there's no reflected component. In order for light to be useful, you have to usually have a reflected component. In other words, I can walk around this room because the light that's coming from here is bouncing off the floor into my eye, so I'm not tripping. This is just total waste, okay? So part of the biological preamble was that the doors sort of quietly start closing when I start talking about health and biology. They want to know about energy and generation. When I start off with generation, this is an energy argument. So the door stays open for at least a little while. I also use this example, and this is sort of following some of the work that Dr. Allen has been doing, is that if you look at these kinds of buildings, it's not unusual that when you sum up over time, that an unoccupied building can use the same amount of energy as an occupied building. And you think about, this really staggers people when you look at this. But it's you add up, the nights, weekends, and the rest of it. It adds up. There's a lot more hours. Now, I photographed this. It was like a Sunday evening, and I know there's a lot of hardworking students and staff, and especially professor types, and I'm sure they're all in there busting their hard at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night.
What building is that, Michael?
This is the sustainability ag biology building. They actually got there's actually a LEED. I'm not supposed to say anything nasty about LEED this month. I promised. I was going to show 10 bicycles. They do have the bicycle racks though. So basically, we don't switch off buildings at nights and weekends, and this is just, this has got all of our stuff. We launched a very large lighting initiative on campus. I used to get a very nice Christmas card from the chancellor because we got 71% savings campus-wide, and this is all our stuff, all our stuff. But there's no one home, okay? And so so again, this is on Dr. Allen's stuff. To look at this, if you look at occupancy, okay, what I learned in school, again, a few short years ago, was there's a pretty linear, straight relationship. If there's nobody home, the lights are off, right? I mean, when you leave home, lights are off. And when you leave your office, everything's off. But the reality is very different, okay, in that the energy can approach, when a building's occupied. And again, you don't have to go very far. This was a large parking structure on our campus, okay? And this is the middle of the night. So I characterize sort of lighting at 3 levels. One is what's called temporal waste, which is a function of time. No one's home. Campus is mostly closed. This is like, I had students running around, middle of the night taking pictures on this, but this is like 2 in the morning. No one's home. This is actually the parking lot that got this started. This is the Mondavi parking lot years ago. And I actually got to have, actually met with the chancellor on this. And we had a proposal on relighting the entire campus. And of course, everybody was going, no, this is a lot of money, wasteful. And I showed her this picture, and she says, that's the Mondavi parking lot, isn't it? And I said, yes, Chancellor, it is. And I said, there's nobody there. And I said, understand, Chancellor, there's nobody there. And so this is what sold that project. And we ended up relighting the entire campus with sensor-based lighting. But this kind of stuff, exists everywhere. This is one of my favoriteest examples. This was a conference I was doing in Hong Kong. And so we're working on their sustainability plan. And they said, we don't have your problems here. In Hong Kong, we're very prudent and careful with how we use energy. You Americans are just, it was quite disdainful. Like you Americans are just sloppy and wasteful and all the rest of it. But anyway, let's talk more about this. And so I flew in. This was the middle of the night. I flew in from San Francisco to Hong Kong, and I stayed here. And I look out the hotel window, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning. This is the middle of the night. And this is the picture. This is the airport. So this is a massive, of course, empty parking lot, fully on. What's even more interesting is this is actually a golf course. A what? Golf course. And if you look really closely, at 2 o'clock in the morning, there are 2 people out there playing golf at 2 in the morning. so this was kind of fun. Temporal waste. Again, this is everywhere. You just drive between Davis and San Francisco. You go through Vacaville, Fairfield, and all the shopping parking lots. They're fully blazing, you know, the middle of the night. I always like it when there's like one car in the parking lot. You know, it's always sort of shows that, well. Then there's spatial waste. Okay, spatial means or relative to where are you putting the light here. Now, more than likely, this person here is not appreciating having this wall fully illuminated by this light source. Maybe, but I doubt it. And also, you probably don't need to light this up at the full level. Now, I understand for safety and security, you might want to have some light there, but you don't need the same flux that you need here. Okay, so this is what's called spatial waste. And this is quite high. Okay. Spatial waste. I mean, you see this everywhere. This is not unusual. And then there's what's called spectral waste. And this has to do with, again, the biologically appropriate light, is that both of these systems here supply approximately the same amount of photons, but in very different parts of the spectrum. And there's huge waste here in terms of how the lighting is applied. So what I'm doing is I'm showing kind of three different light sources here. And Davis actually went through this. Is that we started at 6,500 Kelvin, which means it's very white, very bluish light source. And you can sort of see the color signature is very broad, lots of blue. So the city of Davis actually moved to 2,700 Kelvin and brought down the blue considerably. Similar light levels, but now you're introducing a lot less. Now this is just waste. I'm not even getting into the biology yet. But the blue is really important because that's hurting us at night. You don't want to have that. And actually you can get into amber, which is, my crystal ball tells me we're going here. Okay, so eventually the spec will be, when California did 3,000 Kelvin, and I did the testimony at the state to move the California to 3,000. Oh, actually, I'm going to talk about that, so one sec. Yeah, this is the Mondavi. It was one of the largest parking lots in our system. 70% measured energy waste.
Michael, just going back one.
Sure.
Can our eyes even see all that blue light, or is that outside of the?
No, this is all within the visible. This is all
invisible.
yeah. So there's two seeings. There's the visible seeing and also the non-visible that we see. You know, but the melanopsin is particularly sensitive to this region.
So that it looks blue.
It looks blue, yeah, and that's there's some challenges there. So we incorporate a lot of sensor technology with the idea that the sensor would dial back the lighting. We did lots of smart controls. Really explored this kind of sensor-based lighting. We installed this in all the parking lots. They wouldn't let me drive this. They said, "You're that professor, right?" Yeah. I really wanted to drive this, but I think they got some orders from the vice chancellor that said, "Don't let that professor in here anywhere near our equipment." But basically, before and afters. So the top line is sort of base case HPS, kind of technology. So you can move from HPS to LED. You get the inherent efficacy advantages, okay? But the problem is that our state typically measures power, not energy. And that's what they teach you in school. Why? Because it's easy. And you can't regulate energy, but you can regulate power. But we're learning how to regulate energy. But you bring it down to here, you've got additional savings opportunities here because you can see that, in the middle of the night, this is someone leaving their office at 3 in the morning. What they're doing in their office until 3 in the morning, I don't know. But then they're all coming back, and then they're driving through the parking lot all day. And these are all escapees. These are all people leaving work, okay? Going back, forth. So you wonder about this, right? What's somebody doing at 3 o'clock? I mean, I've fallen asleep here occasionally, at work, and I've woken up, at 2 in the morning. I said, "Oh my God, I'm still here." But so this is kind of a view on it. This is sort of showing the integrated technologies. There's a local kind of intelligence, which makes local decisions, and then a sort of a wireless band that takes signals from different places. You can do pretty much anything with those things. Doing all kinds of testing on street lighting, roadway lighting. This is coming. The state wasn't happy about this. We're not there yet, and it's mostly safety concerns. Is that it's okay, parking lots, pathways, building lighting. You can regulate the heck out of that, but don't touch our roads and streets.
But even if you just like dim it to 50%?
It's got, yeah, and we showed that you can really do it and do it very safely. So that's the next round, you know, and unfortunately it took me 10 years to get there, you know.
But that's what happens in the park belt, that's it. Not just on campus, but the parkways, they're all dimmable, Mike.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of our, and now the city the city got it, you know. And Davis, we got, you know, we both the city and the university got it, but the regulatory activity on this is tricky because it's not covered under Title 24. And unfortunately, Title 20 is very appliance-oriented. It's very widget-oriented. And so getting sort of broad, so that's why I've been pushing on this new initiative, which we're doing now, which is to get them to start thinking more holistically about this. They're on board now. I mean, and of course, we had fun with the entire campus. Lots of savings here. We're getting, 30, 40% over just raw technology, just raw efficacy advantages. I'm running out of time, folks. So the whole energy side was pretty clear, and now this is becoming another problem. Okay, and the issue, and Scientific American was a year and a half ago had a whole thing on light pollution. And the Europeans have been doing a lot of stuff on this. So they just issued a big sort of white paper on this. The stuff has really hit the fan on this, and the people are really starting to listen. Now, the first couple of years going into the commission, they go, no. But the Scientific American, I had to sort of push it under the door, and say, read this, And they read it, and they said, maybe you're not so crazy. Come on back. And so, and this is one of my partners down at UCLA, long course, and smart guy, and he's got a lot of data on this. And I mean, I don't like the 18.7 because you can't get those kind of numbers, right? But about 20% of the planet is light polluted, meaning that we're being affected by light. And so 18% sounds okay, maybe that's a problem. But the big problem here is it's increasing at 2% per year. So it doesn't take a lot of high order math to figure out in 25 years we're going to be all lit, sitting around in the light, at night. And so this really got people's attention. And I had references on it. And again, I'm slipping this stuff under the door because I'm trying to get commissioner interest on this. And they're starting to read this, and we're starting to get meetings, and I'm doing presentations up at the Energy Commission. So the light pollution thing, okay, it's light polluted, it's affecting us, we're getting this melatonin suppression. What really got the attention was this, is that there's a lot of stuff coming out now relative to the effect of light on insects, okay? And discussions of insect collapse, okay? And so, and this was really got, really, this made this happen, was the insect part. And there's a lot of really serious stuff coming out now about insects and pollinator collapse, pollinators. And what does California do? We grow a lot of almonds and a lot of stuff that needs pollinators. And so that really got attention. We got the ag people involved, the vice chancellor of strategic initiatives. They're all interested in this. The vice provost, right? And so, and again, there's all kinds of stuff, not my stuff, but these are outside people that have been doing all this. The science is pretty clear on this, that that light pollution is a huge issue relative to insects. Okay. So the state's expert on insects and circadian is the chair of the entomology department. So we have experts on this. So 2 years ago, the Audubon Society sponsored this bill relative to light disruption and birds, because of bird migration patterns. And so I got to dress up and do testimony at the legislature on this. And I did all this stuff about the energy waste and all the rest of it. So we had, Audubon national parks. And the idea was for state buildings to use biologically appropriate light. And basically the sensor-based lighting, a different spectrum, something a little bit more sensitive. There's stuff that's already there. Do this. And my bid on this thing was to say, this makes absolute economic sense. For the biology stuff we read, but in terms of the energy, 50% of exterior light is total waste. And so this is, I'm practicing up here, but this whole room is filled with real serious types, and they're all asking questions, and thank you, professor, and they all said, this is just great, let's do it. and I said, it's going to be cheaper if you do this. I mean, just think economics on this. So the state will save all kinds of money. The components of this were, and this is kind of, the components of the bill were, we would move to 27 Kelvin 3000. Again, you got the Davis, both the city and the universities already did this 10 years ago. So this wasn't reaching that deep. Full controls, shielding, apply to decorative lighting, and all projects moving forward. So we gave on all the objections on this.
And this is for exterior lighting.
This was exterior building on all state buildings.
Exterior building, what does that mean?
Exterior lighting for buildings. This would be pathways, wall packs, parking lots, walkways, anything connected to a state building that's on the outside that's illuminated. And there's a lot of it. And this was, usually the legislative types are pretty grumbly and you're working at their privilege, but they were all really enthusiastic about it. It just felt good. It felt good to be from Davis, you go there and you felt like, all these years of being snubbed, but it just felt good. So bill moved forward, went through the Senate, went through the legislature, got vetoed by the governor. And what happened was the folks at the state, at what's called DGS, the Department of General Services, that looks after our state building, said, it's going to be too expensive. And it was basically the concept of cost effectiveness, of saving energy, all this kind of stuff. You could show, and I showed them the numbers. I went through the math. I did a Blackboard session with them. I didn't use calculus. I did slow math on the board. These people all had higher educations, But it was just, they were just resistant. They wouldn't do it. And this was very careful construct, very careful. And it was people were outraged on this, And so we're gonna look at resubmitting next. This was not this year, last year. We're gonna look at resubmitting it again because it made a lot of sense. But the energy.
So Michael, was the bill basically as things fail they get replaced?
Yeah,
or they just have to go in and relight it all? You're absolutely. That's a really great question. We got all this stuff. They said, we really like this stuff, but it's just we're gonna have to change all the building. No. It was going to be all projects moving forward. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so we wanted to make this. So in other words, if it's all projects moving forward, literally they are spending more money now not doing this. They're now spending more money, and we showed that. And so we did all this stuff. Even 2700, 3000 Kelvin, as much as the leadership it was for the city and Davis, this is still pretty easy to do. I'm sorry. Chicken shit. It was just low level, we need to go further, the commissioner asked me, he said, why are we doing this? What's your magic number? And I said, it's 2200. And I said, if I did 2200, there'd be a riot. The manufacturers would bolt. Yeah. Thank you, Director, for coming. That's my pleasure. Sorry to interrupt this. One of the best presentations I've ever seen.
Great, thank you. It's always good to have management here. So the whole issue is I get this from reasonably smart people. They'll say, we already did energy efficient lighting
It's already LED lighting. It's already efficient, you know. So the issue is that, well, it's really not, you know, because, you know, energy is very different than power, you know, and so what do we need? Just to summarize, we need to research and demonstrate appropriate biological lighting. We need to develop it. So the Energy Commission is hopefully going to come out with some kind of program that says, what should we do? You know, so, and hopefully we can help them with that. We need to evolve some leadership standards. We need to incentivize the heck out of it, and we need to educate on this, you know, kind of thing. And then also I'm arguing, this is everywhere now, because there's so many loopholes in our standards that this is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So near term, there's stuff that we can do today. And this is just relative to how standards are poorly constructed. And I know that because I did most of this. And it was just 10 years ago, it was okay. But today it's just no. You know, it's just no. We need to do much better. So where are we going? I mean, this is getting kind of, we need to start optimizing spectra, and that means getting better color. And I said I wanted to sort of get into this. So color has to do with how white is something is, and it's relative to a black body. So if you look at a piece of metal and you heat it, it glows from, as you start heating a piece of metal, it goes from sort of red, orange, and goes up this kind of spectrum. And that's just basic physics. And we call it Kelvin because it relates to, sort of looks like what a piece of metal looks like. And so we all, you know, the Asian standard is around 6,500 Kelvin. So if you go to Japan or Korea or Thailand or whatever, it's all 6,500 Kelvin. And if you're interested in this, I've drilled into this, and I know why this happens. The industry standard, when I came to Davis, we all did 5,000, and we were like leaders and felt really good about it. Okay? We then moved to 4,000 Kelvin. We were the first 4,000 Kelvin campus in the country, and I had to go in and explain very slowly to the vice chancellor why were we doing 4,000 and spending a whole lot more money than everybody else. And I said, well, you know, it's reducing the blue content, and it's biologically more appropriate, and you're a leader. And that worked pretty well. You know? So a few short years later, we moved to 3,000 Kelvin. So I had to go back in and explain. And they said, son, we spent a lot of money on you. And we moved to 3,000 Kelvin. Why are we doing this? You know, and I explained again that they were leaders, and that worked again. So City of Davis, of course, did 2,700 Kelvin because they got out in front. We're starting to experiment with 2,000 Kelvin, and the vice chancellor is now, yes, mea culpa, you were right. We're going to move to 2,000 Kelvin. So that's coming. Cal Green is what I call the Boy Scout code. You know, it's like you have your normal code, but if you're a Boy Scout and you want to do a super energy efficient building, you do Cal Green, which is like, they don't like me saying Boy Scout. But it's a kind of leadership. And so they did 3,000 Kelvin, and that was a hard push, and it was the first place in the country that did a non-energy based standard for an energy standard, basically. And it was really a nice precedent, and it showed tremendous leadership on their part to do this. I mean, it was really, really impressive to see. And this is, you know, it's not like this is a super new concept. I mean, this is like turtle lighting. You've probably heard this before, you know, so we're taking care of turtles that are migrating, and it's the blue light that's disrupting them, et cetera. But this is the way lighting should be, and it's low level, it's not high up, it's low to the ground, it's not a lot of glare. So this is kind of interesting where things are going. And it's very pleasant, you know. I mean, the first installations of 2,700 Kelvin in Davis were just beautiful. I mean, the pathways and walkways were just, and I remember we all went out for a tour of the bike paths through Davis with this 2,700 Kelvin. It was really nice. So that's the short presentation, sorry. You guys have questions? I mean,
what did the governor say, man? Why did he just like hype up?
This is all within the Davis crowd, right? Yeah. So there's
there's a special little column that says anything that costs money, go. You know, and the thing is that someone at DGS who I know went to the governor and said this is going to cost money. We think it's a good thing, but it's going to cost money. And that's all he had to say. It's going to cost money. And they vetoed it.
But it would cost money anyways for
Or any new project. And so I was explaining that, yes, you pay a little bit more for some of these lighting components, but you're going to own that. You know, I don't think the state is selling any of its buildings anytime soon. So it's going to recover that whatever small costs on energy savings. And you're going to save a lot. And that didn't get mentioned. And it was just egregious, you know. And, you know, you get really discouraged when you run into that, you know. But that's going to be your future. I mean, you guys are. You're all sort of the leaders of our energy culture, right? That's what we're doing here, right? It's this program is all the future energy leaders, right? You guys.
So regarding roadways, does the calculation change on melatonin suppression? Because you want to suppress melatonin among drivers, I would say.
It's a really good question. And so the preface to that is if the surgeon is taking out your appendix at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't want biologically appropriate lighting. You want the bluest, whitest light known to man, you know? Okay. So now you could argue, should somebody be taking out your appendix at 2 o'clock in the morning? On the driver's side, the state, interestingly enough, the Caltrans was one of the first organizations in the world to move to 3,000 Kelvin. They did that because of the AMA in advance of the Energy Commission. But on roadway lighting is that the broad points for visibility are non-illuminated. You know, you're illuminated by those. The interchanges where there's a lot more illumination, it's a really good point. And so I think the surgery argument prevails under those cases. When I got asked this at the commission, I said the surgery argument prevails. Because if you're out driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, you probably have other problems. You know, yeah, and that vision is a good thing. Yeah, and so at that point in time, it's like the lighting we're doing for night nurses. I mean, can you imagine the night nurses? This is where they found all these medical problems because night nurses are disrupting their circadian rhythm constantly. And so we've been working on that with the new hospital. So I thought maybe we'd do a quick walkthrough. I know I've way more than exceeded my time here.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you. You guys were great.